And then lastly, we can show up as members and not just as guests. Now, I just want to end on this note, but I want to just I just want to have a talk here real quick about this, all right? In every church gathering, there are two types of people in attendance. There are members and there are guests. Now, I'm not talking about the difference between people in the membership roster and those who are not. I'm talking about people who see themselves as members of the body of Christ, and that leads them to show up with a certain attitude and intention for why we are here, for why they are here. And the primary difference between a guest and a member is that guests come to receive and members come to give and receive. That's it. Members receive too, and they expect to receive, and they should, but they also come to contribute, right? Members come to give and receive. Now, the church should always desire, invite, and encourage guests to join without question, qualification, or condition. The church's message to the world, to everyone, is always be our guest, okay? It's always welcoming the guests in. We welcome people not because of what they can potentially contribute, in other words. We welcome people because they're people. And they are therefore beloved of God, whether they know it or not. And so our message is always the same to guests. Be our guests. We want you to know the love of God. And the most convincing way possible is for us to constantly pour out generosity and hospitality, without fail. Week after week, gathering after gathering. But a community like that can only exist over time because it's not a community full of only guests. If everyone comes as a guest, no one ends up receiving, right? Because everyone comes just to consume. And that's why the critical mass of a community needs to be a community of members for it to be sustainable. You follow? If more people come only to receive and consume as guests, more members will start to feel like they themselves are being consumed, are being used, are being spread thin, threadbare, burnt out, and that is not a sustainable community. And then that changes the culture, because then the members who are coming to give and receive, and they're doing way more giving than receiving, they start to become resentful. And then it becomes an uninviting community, and then it's a vicious cycle. And what the signs of this happening is that volunteers will decrease, staff either has to grow, like paid staff has to grow to do the work, or get burnt, gets burnt out. And gatherings become more production oriented for audiences rather than congregations, rather than a community of contributors, right? Are you following me? Okay, and when that happens, you start to see churches bending over backwards to keep people in the doors and accommodating and enabling a passive culture of Christianity, where it's just about getting you in the door so we can get your tithe from you and communicating to you that there's actually nothing special about this gathering and what it represents. And so you can be about your merry way and continue in a consumer culture on the outside that you've just left on the inside. And as that happens, the church starts to become less of what the church was meant to be. We move from koinonia then just to ecclesia, just a gathering of individual Christians who are here each for what we can receive, for the production value, and not for what we come to contribute as members of vital members of the body of Christ. Vital members of the body of Christ in such a way that we know this is the kind of community that can say, like Paul says in 1 Corinthians 12, man, when one suffers, we suffer together here. When one is honored, we rejoice together here. We share in the suffering of one another. We share in the rejoicing of one another, because that's what it is like to be a member at Crossroads. That's what we want to be, right? That's the kind of community we want to be for Jesus first and foremost, but yes, also for one another. We all want to be part of a community of belonging, but to be perfectly honest, that requires more from each of us, not less. And that's a tough sell in a de-churched culture, is it not? But it's up to us. And the more people who come with that attitude and intention, the less the burden feels for all of us. Many hands make light work. I told you, when Paul came to the men's retreat, I just thought, this is a relief. This is easy. I was eager to bring him because I knew it wasn't just me. We were all going to be a part of that. And it was easy to embrace him in that context, because that's what he needed. And what does the world need? The world needs Jesus. But what does the world need? The world needs the church. The world needs the church to be the church. What does the world need? The world needs Jesus. What does the world need? The world needs the body of Jesus, the body of Christ. And that is what we are.